It is my pleasure now to introduce the first speaker of the general session, and that is Dr. Cara Jacob. Dr. Jacob is an associate professor at the University of Cincinnati. She's been with us for now a number of years, I would say about 5-6 years or so. And by the way, the next presentation can be plugged in if we have it. I don't know actually where that is. And Dr. Jacob is someone that has been really quite a wonderful resource to all of our patients. She is going to talk to us about complementary alternative medicine and nutrition in Parkinson's disease. If we can have the presentation, is it here or is it over there? It's over here. I'll do it then. All right, here we are. Is that it? Yep, that's it. That's it. Thank you. Dr. Jacob?
Let's see. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Today I'm going to be talking about complementary alternative medicine and nutrition in Parkinson's disease. So a common question that patients with Parkinson's ask me is, other than medication that we prescribe, what can they do to help their symptoms of Parkinson's? And that's where complementary alternative medicine may come into the conversation, right? So what is complementary alternative medicine? So it includes natural products like herbal supplements, vitamins, minerals. So these are things you would buy in a health food store or a supplement store. As well as mind-body practices like meditation, acupuncture, exercise. Dr. Colapietro is going to talk a little bit more about mindfulness and meditation, so I'm not really going to hit on that today. But so those are examples of complementary alternative medicine. So 40 to 75% of Parkinson's patients surveyed report that they've tried some form of complementary alternative medicine. So what is the draw, right? So why do patients like this, or does this sound appealing to them? Well, I think it's for several reasons, but mainly because it gives them a sense of control or empowerment over their own well-being, right? You feel like you're doing something to help yourself. Also, patients may say they like a more holistic or natural approach to their health. And then lastly, there may be a mistrust of conventional or Western medicine. It may be a misguided mistrust, in my opinion, but they may feel that way. But as your doctors, we always want to know, well, what is the evidence for these type of things, right? Would we recommend these? So many patients that have been surveyed report that they've improved with the use of various types of complementary alternative medicine. But the question is, could that be a placebo effect? So that's where you feel like you think something's going to help you, you take that thing and it helps you, but there's really not a physiologic response that's helping you. It's a placebo effect, right? And we know that we can see that in Parkinson's. The power of the mind is quite powerful. But there have been a few trials of complementary alternative medicine that have been done in a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled fashion. So this is kind of the gold standard type of trial that we like to see on a certain medication or intervention to recommend it to our patients, right? So what do those terms mean? I talked about this a little bit last year. Randomized simply means when you enter into a clinical trial, you are randomly placed in the intervention group or in the control group, meaning either a placebo or a controlled type of intervention. So nobody's picking that, it's chosen at random. Double-blinded means the patient doesn't know what group they're in, so they don't know if they're getting the study intervention or medication or not, and the clinician evaluating them doesn't know that either. And then placebo-controlled, like I said, just means one group is getting a placebo. That's almost like a sugar pill or something that makes them possibly feel like they're getting the intervention, and then the other group is truly getting the intervention. And this is important to eliminate things like bias in research studies, right? Or to eliminate the placebo effect. So as I'm going through some of these things, I want you to remember that not everything that gains attention in the press has been backed by research, and not all research is good research. you will be inundated with things that you see on the internet or ads about how these things are, you'll see an ad for a supplement that's going to change your Parkinson's forever. And so we have to remember to look at that with a critical lens rather than just believing what we see. So I'm going to go through some of the examples, like I said, of complementary alternative medicine. And as I do that, I created this rating system. This has not been validated in any kind of clinical trial. This is my own rating system. But red means that the intervention or the drug that I'm talking about has been thoroughly studied in well-designed clinical trials with many patients, and it hasn't shown benefit in Parkinson's disease. Or alternatively, there's been no clinical trials done in Parkinson's showing benefit. So red would mean I don't recommend it, right? Yellow would mean that studies have been done that maybe show benefit in Parkinson's, but the results haven't been replicated, or the studies that were done were poorly designed and had very few patients. So mainly yellow means yield, caution. There needs to be more studies or more data to prove or disprove its benefit. And then green means that there's been well-designed clinical trials showing benefit in large numbers of Parkinson's patients. So it gets a green. It says, okay, yeah, you can do this. This is okay. There's data behind it. So the first thing I want to mention in terms of complementary alternative medicine are these vitamins and supplements you see here. So vitamin E, coenzyme Q10, which is an antioxidant. Inosine, this is a precursor to something called uric acid. Uric acid is felt to be protective somewhat in Parkinson's. And then creatine. So all of these vitamins and supplements were studied in well-designed clinical trials and unfortunately have failed to show improvement in Parkinson's symptoms or they failed to show slowing of progression of Parkinson's, despite us really being hopeful for these things, right? So I give this a rating of a red, right? It's been studied. They haven't been found to be beneficial. So I say, don't waste your money or your time looking into taking these things. Next, I want to talk about something called mucuna pruriens. This is actually a legume from India, but it's grown in other places in the world. And you can extract levodopa. So remember, levodopa is the kind of active component in the drug Sinemet or carbidopa-levodopa, which is one of the mainstay medicines we use in Parkinson's. So they can extract levodopa from this legume and roast the seeds to make a powder form. There's been a handful of studies showing benefit with mucuna in the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and you can buy this in health food stores. You can buy it. It's on the shelf in certain supplement stores. The downside to this was tolerability in one study, but more importantly, there's really no regulation of the dosing or the potency if you go to buy this over the counter, again, in a supplement store. So it's really hard to know what you're getting, how much to take. So you could see it would be easy to underdose or take too much of this. And we have to remember that supplements they're not regulated by the FDA, right? So there's not a strict standard for, this much has to be in this pill, so what you're getting might vary from bottle to bottle. So I tell my patients, don't do this, right? We have Sinemet, carbidopa-levodopa, that is well-regulated. We know how to dose it. We know how it works. Use that, right, instead of this. I gave it a rating of a yellow, though, rather than a red. In some countries, they may not have access to the medications that we have, so this could potentially be an option for those patients that don't have access to kind of conventional medications like Sinemet. I'm going to talk a little bit about thiamine. This is vitamin B1. I really hadn't thought about this, but I had a couple of patients recently say, hey, I've heard that high doses of B1, I should be taking this for my Parkinson's. And so I said, okay, well, let me look into this. And actually, there's been some recent internet buzz about taking vitamin B1 for Parkinson's. And it's really seemed to be based on this small study performed by a neurologist in Italy who gave his Parkinson's patients 100 milligrams of thiamine intramuscularly twice a week. So they got shots twice a week. And he said all of his patients improved significantly in their motor scores, their physical exam scores of Parkinson's. However, when you look at kind of the fine print in this study, there was no control group. So all of the patients got the study intervention. They all knew they were getting this drug. The clinician knew they were getting this drug. And even more importantly, all of the patients in the study increased their levodopa, so again, Sinemet, the main medicine that helps Parkinson's disease, by over double from the beginning of the study to the end of the study, which is probably what was helping their motor symptoms in Parkinson's. So you have to, again, and when you look at this, it looks like a legitimate study, but at the same time, you have to look at things with a critical lens. So for this, I gave it a rating of orange. Sorry, I'm making this really confusing. But I would have given it a red, but thiamine is definitely a safe medicine to take. But again, for Parkinson's, really, there's no data that high doses of this right now should be something you should be doing. Restore Gold. So some people may have heard of Restore Gold. Some people may even be taking Restore Gold here. So Restore Gold is a supplement that contains the ingredients you see there. The claims of the people that sell Restore Gold is that it slows the progression of Parkinson's disease. In reality, this is an absolutely false claim. There have been 0 studies showing this medication is effective at slowing the progression of Parkinson's. Or even to say whether it's safe. And so I get very angry when I see things like this. This is actually the website for Restore Gold. The website is actually called We Have Parkinson's. So when I looked this up, I was like, this looks like Parkinson's patients saying, oh, like things that have worked for them. No, this is all about selling Restore Gold. And they say, only take Restore Gold if you're really serious about helping your Parkinson's. And I think these things are, again, borderline fraudulent. So I say this gets a rating of a red, right? They have a lot of patient testimonials and things like that, but really there's just no good data to suggest this is helpful. So don't give them any more money. I hope there's no Restore Gold sellers in the audience here. But moving on to marijuana and CBD oil. So CBD is cannabidiol, so that's a cannabinoid in marijuana. So despite much public interest in marijuana and CBD in Parkinson's, there's really only been a handful of studies that have been completed. They've had some mixed results, but only 2 of those studies have really been done in a well-designed fashion. So again, that randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, gold standard type of study we like as your doctors to recommend or not recommend a intervention. And neither of those studies showed improvement in the motor symptoms or dyskinesias in Parkinson's disease. And again, this is something that is just really not well regulated. And so we wouldn't even, people are like, well, what if I did take medical marijuana? How much should I take? And I'm like, I have no idea. It's just not been looked into or proven to be beneficial. Perhaps in the future, more studies will be done looking at specific other symptoms in Parkinson's, like mood or lack of appetite with medical marijuana. But right now, for Parkinson's, I usually do not recommend this for my patients. So it gets a rating of a red. Sorry if I crushed anybody's hopes with that. Moving on to more of the physical interventions in Parkinson's, which again are a part of complementary alternative medicine. Tai Chi is something you may hear a lot about in Parkinson's. So this is a traditional Chinese martial art. It uses flowing movements and postures alongside deep breathing and meditation. And it's felt to really improve balance, stress, strength, and overall kind of health and well-being. There's actually been several randomized controlled trials looking at Tai Chi and Parkinson's, and the largest study I could find included 195 patients who either did Tai Chi or some type of conventional exercise. And when they compared the 2 groups at about 6 months, all of the patients showed improved motor function, but the Tai Chi group performed significantly better on postural stability measurements, and they had fewer falls. So for this, I gave it a rating of a green. This is safe, this is low risk, it may be effective, so if you're interested in doing this, it's got data behind it, and I say go for it. What about yoga, right? So yoga has gained more popularity over the years, and there's been a handful of small studies showing benefit in motor scores, balance, mood, and Parkinson's patients who do yoga. Unfortunately, in some of those studies, the control group didn't do any intervention, right? So one group did yoga, and the group they were comparing it to did no exercise at all. So it's hard to determine in those studies whether it was the yoga specifically that helped those patients or if it was just doing some type of physical activity, right? But overall, I give it a rating of a green, right? If you like yoga, I think it helps your strength, balance, It helps with stretching and flexibility. I give it a green. So if you like doing yoga, keep doing yoga. If you don't like doing yoga, you don't have to do yoga. Yeah. And then more conventional exercise, like resistance training. So this is like strength training, weights, resistance bands, endurance training. So these are more of your cardiovascular exercises, like using a elliptical, walking, swimming, stationary bike, and then other intensive training exercises like boxing classes that we know that are offered for Parkinson's, and a lot of our Parkinson's exercise classes that combine cardiovascular exercise with strength training and stretching. They have all shown in some way benefit in Parkinson's when you look at the data and the studies that are available out there. So these get a rating of a green circle for me. So we all know the importance of exercise in Parkinson's. So I usually tell my patients, pick what you like to do, right? If you hate swimming, by all means don't start swimming because you're not going to stick to it. Do the exercise that you will like to do and that you enjoy to do. What about things like acupuncture? So acupuncture, it's a long-standing part of traditional Chinese medicine. It involves placing tiny needles in strategic parts of the body to balance the flow of energy. There's actually been several studies done looking at this in Parkinson's. They've had mixed results, so some showed benefit, others didn't show any benefit. And three of those trials were done in a randomized, controlled sham fashion. Okay, so what does this mean? So one group of patients got the needles placed strategically in places felt to help Parkinson's, and the other group of patients just had needles randomly stuck in them wherever. And in those studies, there was no benefit in the group where the needles were randomly placed over the ones where they were strategically placed. So either, there's a placebo effect there, or just randomly placing needles in yourself helps you. So I give this a rating of a yellow. I think right now there's really not great evidence to say it's helpful in Parkinson's, but it's not harmful. And it's been studied in other things like back pain and things like that. So that may be something that you look into that for. Moving on to nutrition in Parkinson's. So a lot of my patients want to know, are there any foods they should avoid or eat more of to help their Parkinson's symptoms? And I think that's a great question. And while there's no one superfood in Parkinson's, there are some things that patients should keep in mind, right? So one is something called protein sensitivity. So consuming protein-rich foods at the same time as the medicine Sinemet or carbidopa-levodopa, again, that's one of the most common medicines we use in Parkinson's. When you take this medicine at the same time as protein in the gut can block the absorption of that medicine. And so we usually counsel patients to try to take Sinemet, their carbidopa-levodopa, 30 minutes before or 60 minutes after eating, if possible. I know that's hard when you're taking a medicine multiple times a day, and I usually tell patients, don't stress out completely about this, but as a general rule, if you can, take it away from those large kind of protein meals. This does not mean at all you should not consume protein. I don't want to send that message because every once in a while I'll get a patient say, I stopped eating protein. I'm like, no, don't do that. You have to eat protein. But just try to take it away from your meals. And then iron supplements, this is a little caveat here. Patients always want to know, can I take my Sinemet or my Parkinson's medicine with my other medicines that I take? And the general answer is yes. However, the one exception is iron supplements. Iron supplements can block the absorption of Sinemet in the gut just like protein can. So iron supplements some people are on that for anemia, low kind of blood levels. But what about diet, right? What should you eat with your Parkinson's? So probably the diet that's been studied the most in Parkinson's is something called the Mediterranean diet. So that consists of a high intake of fruits, vegetables, a very heavy plant-based diet with limited unsaturated fatty acids. These are the good fats. Nuts, legumes, whole grains, fish, and a moderate consumption of wine. Woohoo! With limited dairy, meat, poultry, fried foods, that sort of thing. The studies that have been done for this in Parkinson's, though, a lot of times they're looking at, can sticking to a diet like this help prevent the development of Parkinson's rather than is it helping your symptoms with Parkinson's? So again, remember that as I'm going through some of this data. So this was a study done in 2019 that showed that people adhering to a Mediterranean diet seem to have a less likelihood of developing something called prodromal Parkinson's. Prodromal Parkinson's are symptoms that we think may develop into Parkinson's, or symptoms that started maybe years before your physical symptoms of Parkinson's, like lack of smell, constipation, dream enactment behavior. So that's what they were looking at in this study. And again, there was two other studies done in the US that showing a decreased odds of Parkinson's in those who adhered to a Mediterranean diet. Now, diet studies are hard, right? And they can be full of kind of limitations. So you have to remember, when these patients are doing, in these studies, they're having to record everything they eat over a long period of time. So they can have maybe some incomplete reporting or recall bias. They remember certain foods they ate, but not others. And then always something to remember in these type of studies, and something that, as researchers and clinicians always wonder is, well, was there something about their Parkinson's? Did these patients already have these changes in Parkinson's that led them to an unhealthy diet rather than the reverse, right? So association doesn't always imply causation. We have to remember that. So maybe it was that patients with Parkinson's, the people that went on to develop Parkinson's already had lack of smell and maybe, constipation that led them to a different diet to begin with, okay? But overall, do I recommend a Mediterranean diet? Absolutely. It's safe. There's been numerous studies actually showing decreased risk of heart disease and stroke. This has been looked at in other neurodegenerative diseases, like cognitive diseases, and so it's possibly protective against those neurodegenerative diseases. So if you're going to do a diet, I say, Mediterranean diet is a one to pick, right? Lastly, fluids matter, right? I always tell patients you want to drink plenty of fluid. This helps Parkinson's patients by preventing fluctuations in their blood pressure, which we know can be a problem sometimes in Parkinson's. And it also helps constipation, which is a problem in our patients a lot. Water is the best, so not all fluids are created equal. Don't drink Mountain Dew or pop all day long, sugary beverages, those don't count. It's water. And you want to aim for around 60 ounces per day. The one exception to this is, some patients may have other medical reasons like congestive heart failure or low sodium where their doctor may tell them, you shouldn't be consuming large amounts of water, so just caution there. But in general, you want to aim for around 60 ounces per day. And I usually tell patients front load this to the first half to 3/4 of your day. You don't want to chug all of your water before you go to bed at night because then you're going to be up going to the bathroom all night long. So that would be a problem. So I will end there, and thank you for your time.